St Nicholas Calf sits on one of Scarborough's most historically fascinating spots, a place once home to a vast underground Victorian entertainment palace complete with an aquarium. It had alligators, seals, a ballroom and even a tramway turning circle. The Calf has an excellent viewpoint above the South Bay, but beneath your feet lies the memory of one of Scarborough's grandest lost attractions. Let's take a walk and discover this hidden gem. Gala Land began life in 1877 as the Peoples Palace and Aquarium, an ambitious underground world built beneath Scarborough Spar Bridge, covering more than 2.5 acres, most of it hidden below ground so the sea view remained untouched. It was a marvel of its time, and despite the name, it was more of a zoo than an aquarium, home to seals, monkeys, alligators and even tigers. The huge Victorian aquarium, which opened in 1877, sat directly below where the Calf stands today. The roundabout is built above the former ballroom roof, and the underground car park occupies the footprint of the aquarium. Inside, visitors found a concert hall with its own resident band, a reading room, a shooting gallery, an orchestra and a steady stream of visiting performers. But it was never the success its creators hoped for, and by the early 20th century the shine had faded. In 1925, Scarborough Council took it over and gave it a new identity called Gala Land. They transformed the underground palace into a lively amusement arcade filled with rides, slide shows and music, and the kind of seaside magic generations still remember. But even with its new name and new purpose, the financial trouble never truly went away. By 1966 the doors were closed for good. And in 1968 the entire complex, once one of Scarborough's boldest creations, was demolished, and it made way for the underground car park that stands on the site today. This bus stop, the Aquarium Top bus stop, as it's known locally, marks the exact overground location where the entrance once stood. And on the junction of Valley Road and Vernon Road, if I turn the camera around, that's one of the retaining walls. Faint bricked up arch shapes can be seen in the masonry walls that supported it. There are a few physical reminders of the aquarium or Gala Land around here at the Cliff Bridge. The sunken wonderland is now an underground car park. However, the area is still known as the Aquarium Top. The People's Palace was a masterpiece of imagination. Its internal design drew inspiration from Hindu temples with sweeping arches and terracotta work that gave the underground halls an almost sacred glow. Beneath the Spar Bridge, visitors walk the tidal floors decorated with seaweed, shells and starfish and dolphins as reproduced in these tunnels that were once the palace area. It's a subtle reminder of the world that once lived in the tanks around them. And at the heart of it all stood the aquarium's greatest marvel, a simmering window into the deep, hidden from below the cliffs of Scarborough for many years. This is where Gala Land was, now the car park. Let's take a look at what it would have looked like. In September 1925, a tram climbing Vernon Road began to slip backwards. The conductor and 2 passengers leapt clear, but the driver stayed at the controls, fighting to stop the runaway tram as it gathered speed. He couldn't. The train shot downhill, smashed through the roof of the aquarium concert hall roof and plunged 30 feet to the floor below. And a miracle, the driver crawled from the wreckage with only minor injuries. In the days that followed, the shattered roof was covered with sheets, and a wooden board was fixed over the gaping hole in the wall above. The tram itself was removed piece by piece, and it was replaced with a brand new car. A dramatic moment in Scarborough's history, one that literally broke through the ceiling of the old aquarium. Visitors could even ride a roller coaster, squeezed deep inside the underground complex. A small mini dipper twisted its way around one of the chambers, rattling through the dimly lit space with a mix of excitement and danger that only Gala Land could offer. And in true Scarborough fashion, it carried a wonderful, ironic name, the Scenic Ride. A curious title for a roller coaster that never saw daylight. This shows the original aquarium exterior and confirms the scale of the tanks. The old aquarium walls and upper structures behind which the giant tanks and animal closures sat. The architecture is imposing, almost fortress-like, perfect for the storage of strange creatures echoing through the halls. Let's compare this view with one taken pre-1874, before Gala Land was built. This shows the old horse and donkey stables which were there. This further photograph shows when work began on Gala Land in 1874 and the stable was being demolished. It cost over £120,000 to complete, which is around £15 million in today's money. In 1931, one of the very first televisions ever seen in Scarborough arrived at Gala Land. Visitors could sit before a camera and watch their own image appear on 3 separate receivers in separate rooms. At a time when television was still a scientific curiosity, this was nothing short of astonishing to people. People queued just to witness the novelty of seeing themselves broadcast years before television sets would become a sight in British homes. For many, it was their very first glimpse of the future, hidden away in the underground of Gala Land. Here are some strange but true tales of Gala Land. Or might be true. As I mentioned earlier, Gala Land also kept alligators, a fact that already feels surreal for a Victorian underground complex. According to locals, one of the alligators escaped during feeding time and wandered into a service corridor before being recaptured. They also had the Spider Lady, whose face was painted like a web and who emerged from behind the curtain to frighten children. Visitors remembered the Spider Lady's entrance as terrifying. She would wait behind a black velvet curtain in near darkness, then lunge forward suddenly, illuminated by a gas jet. One of Gala Land's most famous and unsettling performers was Umran, the armless wonder, who used her feet to perform delicate tasks on stage. She was part of a roster of sideshow acts that also included the Empress of the Sea and Zazma, the acrobat. When the aquarium was converted to Gala Land, a monkey house was added. The monkeys were so loud that the sound echoed through the vaulted Hindu-Moorish halls, startling visitors in distant rooms. Staff were said to have hung heavy curtains to muffle the shrieks. Inside the underground complex ran a miniature roller coaster, the Scenic Railway, that circled the interior walls. Visitors described it as loud, rickety and terrifying, but brilliant. The idea of a roller coaster rumbling in the underground palace is wonderfully bizarre. Gala Land included a maze that surprisingly got people lost because it was underground and lit by gas lamps. Visitors often lost their sense of direction and staff often had to guide the confused guests back to the main hall. Beneath this quiet hill, a kingdom once stood, a palace of glass carved into the earth where lantern light danced across drifting shapes. Here families wandered through warm greenish light, and the sea whispered against the walls like a patient storyteller. Above it, trams rattled along the cliff edge, carrying laughter, summer and the pulse of a growing town. But time is a relentless tide. The crowds faded, the music dimmed, and the great aquarium slipped beneath the surface of memory. Yet the name remained a ghost on a bus stop, a whisper on the hill, a reminder of the world that once lived below. Stand here long enough and you might feel it, the faint tremor of history rising, calling you back to the palace beneath your feet. Aquarium top, where the past still breathes just below the surface.